justice reign, in peace or battle honored, and this we count as gain. To hang unto our children a banner without stain. O God of all creation, grant this our one request. Help us to build a nation where no man is oppressed, and so with peace and plenty, Nigeria may be blessed.
Pastor Sunny, you're up, sir.
Well, let's welcome all of us to today's edition of the African Leadership Group, the Nigerian Leadership Series. Today is going to be an interesting conversation that we're going to generally have with ourselves so that we can review the state of affairs in Nigeria. And I think today I will be doing most of the conversation while Jumoke tries to take us through the questions and things like that. 64 years after independence, I really do not know where we are as a country in Nigeria, and we need to start looking at ourselves again and see where we're going to take Nigeria to. I think Faye may have some documentaries, and if he does have those documentaries, he should please cue them and then begin to be ready to play them. A lot of us listen to the president's speech. They have all sorts of comments about it. We may need to review that and see whether it covers the hope that we have. We also need to look at the history of Nigeria. How did Nigeria come into being in the first place? And how has Nigeria remained where it is? And what are the reasons why we are what we are? So I want to do a review of our state as a nation, and then hopefully come up with very clear and definite solutions or recommendations as to what to do with this great and wonderful country. And I will try my best to granulate them depending on how the program goes. Once again, thank you very much for keeping faith. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being here. And thank you for being a great part of our journey so far and our discourse. Let me hand over to Faye in case he has any documentary. And if he doesn't, then I'll ask Jumoke Akitelo to take over. Faye, over to you. Thank you.
October. Now the battle is over. This the date we've been waiting to celebrate.
Can you please increase the volume?
Nigeria is free.
The Independence Calypso. Miss Independence is chosen and admired. The magic word is everywhere as the capital city of Lagos goes gay with decorations arranged by the man who decorates our own Regent Street for Christmas. It's self-government free from slogans, a time for celebration, not recrimination. Half a century of British rule ended at midnight on September the 30th. ceremonies over, the celebrations can begin. The state ball, a glittering occasion, a great gathering of Nigeria's leaders and their guests from many parts of the world, but marked by that capacity for easy informality which the princess clearly shares with the people of Nigeria. High life on a very high level. But all over the new country now, Nigerians on every level begin their own celebrations with floats and festivals, sessions, acrobats and dancing. In the north, as you'll see, the traditional charge of a horseman. At any time, Nigerians are great people for a show or a party. They don't need any excuse. But this time they had a reason, the greatest of all. For they're celebrating the climax of years of patient preparation by British and Nigerians alike. Their coming of age as a nation. Independence given and taken with perfect concord, without bloodshed and without rancor. The new Nigeria.
Well, okay, thank you very much, everyone.
Blamed ourselves enough.
Okay.
We've complained enough. We've cried enough. We've fought ourselves enough. We've hated ourselves enough. It is time to do what the Bible says. In the book of Nehemiah, chapter 2, the prophet Nehemiah cried to the people of his days. He said in verse 18, Nehemiah chapter 2, verse 18, "Then I told them of the hand of God which was upon me, as also the king's word that he has spoken unto me. And they said, Let us rise up and build." So they strengthened their hands for his good work. It has come to a time that I have told God I will no more be one of the complainers, but a part of the solution. And I'm calling on every Nigerian here today, and wherever the sound of my voice may be heard, it's time for us to do what Prophet Nehemiah is saying here. Come together as a people. Come, let's build a new virile nation. I never forget one stanza in our former national anthem, where the composer said, "A nation where no man is oppressed." If we all want to look at the ugly side of Nigeria, we find nothing good at it. I do not know any other country in Africa that is as big as ours, that is as populated and so much blessed with natural resources, blessed with natural gift of God. We have oil of different kinds, so many oil-producing nations have one kind, Nigeria has three kinds.
Pastor Sonny, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. Good evening and welcome once again. We have watched two videos. My name is Pastor Sonny. Today, Pastor Ichwa is going to be the guest, sort of. And the reason for that is the whole essence of starting the ALG, first of all, was Nigeria-centric, and I think it started around this same October independence of Nigeria and getting good leadership, and he has been very passionate about this. He has been very vocal about it in so many ways, and he has spoken about this on so many forums. And just looking at Nigeria, we are 64 years now. How far have we gone? When Benson Idahosa made that speech, the bishop, I think it was about 30 or 40 years ago, to be honest. I don't know, maybe 30 years or 30 something years ago. How far have we moved from that today? So today, as we'll engage Pastor Itua to speak a bit about Nigeria, I've heard him speak often about Nigeria as well. How well have we gone? Nigeria gained independence. I was doing a bit of research and I discovered that from 1960 till now, we've had 14 leaders. 2 have come twice. General Olusegun Obasanjo and General Muhammadu Buhari, they have come twice. So actually 14 people have led Nigeria in the 64 years of our independence. I think it goes without saying that leadership has been the bane of Nigeria's problem. If we haven't gotten the right leader yet, how do we get that leader? But let me allow Pastor Itua to take us a bit through the genesis of when Nigeria gained our independence. Do you think the founding fathers made the right decision to go for the regional kind of government? And if you do you think the interruption of the military in 1966, was a good one? Did it help Nigeria to evolve? What is your feeling and your belief about the evolution of Nigeria from independence to where we have found ourselves today? You can speak generally about it. So, Pastor Itua.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Sonny. And it's a good place to start, although we could start maybe from before that time, how even Nigeria came about. Nigeria came about because a group of adventurers called British people and Europeans generally began to look into Africa as a source of raw materials for their industry and for their economy. And therefore, they all scrambled for Africa. The Spanish, the Portuguese, the French, the British, and 1 or 2 other smaller nations. But largely the Portuguese led the charge, followed by the Spanish, and then the French, and then the British. And they all came to Africa because they discovered, either by accident or one way or the other, that Africa was a veritable source of raw materials. And so they started initially trading with the chiefs. Then they had middlemen inside of that trade. And then eventually they decided that they might as well control the country and the resource. And that's how they started having protectorates, the Southern Protectorate, the Northern Protectorate, in different parts of Africa, South Africa, West Africa, East Africa, almost the whole of Africa. They had their Berlin Conference in 1845 or 1850 something, and they divided Africa among them.
Did we lose Pastor's audio and did we lose his connection?
I think so. I thought it was just me.
No, I thought it was me too. So I had to check. I think he'll be rejoining shortly.
Right. I think he will be rejoining shortly. So he's trying to take the history from even pre-independence. I think the colonialists ruled Nigeria for about half a century before they gave us independence as Nigeria, after the amalgamation in 1914, I guess. And
but it's been 64 years. Oh, he's back. Okay.
Yeah. Pastor, you're welcome back.
I'm sorry about that. Well, that's Nigeria for you.
Nigeria after 64 years.
After 64 years. Okay, so Nigeria and most of Africa came into being because Europeans wanted to control resource. So we need to understand that. After a while, it looked a bit expensive for them to be running these African countries with a lot of resource from Europe. So they began to educate some Africans to the extent that they could do a lot of the administrative work while the Europeans took the critical decisions and still controlled the economy and the resource. So it wasn't a willing separation from Africa. It was a painful separation for them from Africa. Some people say that they were threatened by the US that didn't have any piece of the African pie. And US threatened them that if you no longer support them in terms of negotiation for the US to come into the sector.
No, not today. Nigeria cannot happen to you today, Pastor.
But he's going to turn off his video. Okay, he's back. Okay.
Pastor, Nigeria
Okay,
cannot
all right.
happen
I'll
today.
turn off the video. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So they, of course, negotiated certain terms along with this independence, some of which we may never ever know. But I know that for a lot of the French colonies, they were just, they became neo-colonies in that their central bank, their currency, their reserves, and so on and so forth, was still controlled by the French. As far as British Africa was concerned, I think there was a subtle agreement for continuous raw material supply under certain terms and limited industrialization and so on and so forth. The best that our founding fathers could do was to negotiate some kind of independence that will enable the different parts of Nigeria, the West, okay, along ethnic and tribal lines to continue to develop at their own pace, because there was reluctance and there was not total agreement as to how the development should be and what sort of control should be. So they negotiated an agreement to have colonies, to have what you may call different regions. The northern region, which came from the tips of Sahara, the tips of from the boundaries of Ilorin down to Lagos, along the tributaries of the Niger, and then the east, the rest of Nigeria. Of course, the north had a lion's share of the landmass, and also by some kind of population figure, still disputed till today, they seem to have the larger population, which is very, very unusual. Usually you find that coastal towns have a lot more population than arid areas, but this is what the British left us. What they also did was a constitution that allowed the North to have a majority in parliament based on the kind of what you may call local regions or the they had. So the North had about 180 something, the West had 80, the East had about 80 something or 90 something. It meant, of course, that none of the regions really got to combine with the other regions. But it meant also that the East had to negotiate with the North, or the West had to negotiate with the North. If they could come to the West, maybe then they could try. But the North definitely had a numerical advantage, even at that time, in the House of Parliament, which was only just one house of, well, they had the regional houses of parliament, and then they had the national House of Parliament, okay? So the leaders negotiated this regional development, which meant that each region was virtually a self-sustaining government on its own. It had its own embassy, it had its own House of Parliament, it had laws that were peculiar to it, while the center just controlled the army, controlled the customs, controlled the borders, and controlled largely the police, although you had strong regional police influence also, and therefore just took a few national decisions on behalf of the regions. So the regions harvested their resources, harvested their raw materials, made a donation, a contribution of about 20 or 25% to the federal, and they looked after themselves and made primarily their own laws. That was what was negotiated in the Macpherson Constitutional Conferences that were held in London. And that is the basis on which we got Nigeria started on the 1st of October, 1960, having had some kind of experimental self-rule since 1952 or 1953, when Awolowo became premier of Western Nigeria, Zik became premier of Eastern Nigeria, and Ahmadu Bello was premier of Northern Nigeria with a British governor general. So what happened in 1960 was that instead of a British governor general, you now had a Nigerian prime minister. And instead of Ahmadu Bello coming to the center as the leader of the Northern Progressive Union, the Party of the North at that time, he decided to send his secretary or his assistant, Tafawa Balewa, to be like the prime minister or the leading minister of Nigeria, while he stood back to continue to rule as premier of the North. He had the power, and Tafawa Balewa had the administrative direction of Nigeria. Awolowo, having ceded his position as premier of Western Nigeria, became leader of the opposition, and Zik became the ceremonial president. It is still a mystery till tomorrow why Zik would have opted for the role of ceremonial president when he could have been prime minister had he gone into an alliance with the action group led by Awolowo. But somehow or the other, he didn't accept that and instead decided to go into an alliance with the Northern Progressive Union, or the Party of the North. And they formed the central government, and Tafawa Balewa became prime minister. It's a mystery. It's one of the mysteries of Nigeria till tomorrow. Many rumors abound that the British held a gun to his head, they threatened him, they accused him of corruption and things like that. Nobody really knows. But this is where Nigeria found itself and started its precarious journey towards independence in 1960. I think your follow-up question was the incursion of the military. Again, I have my theory about the military, and I think that the coups were either British induced or British supported, or at the very least, British accepted and recognized. Please note that a lot of the senior military officers were trained in Sandhurst and academies in Britain. One or two of them went to India, but most of them went to Sandhurst and the other academy in Britain. So most of what they learned about soldiering, about military development, about military tactics, and the possibilities of coup execution must have been taught in the classrooms of Sandhurst. Also note that quite a lot of other African countries, almost as if on a queue, also had different kinds of military involvement and military coups across the entire continent of Africa. The only place that is noted that did not really have military involvement was, of course, in South Africa and in Rhodesia, which were still largely under British, German, and Belgian rule, and so on and so forth. But most of the other countries that had independence, both Francophone and Anglophone African countries, had one kind of military incursion or the other. And I think a lot of these things were British supervised or British sponsored, British instigated, British educated, or at the very least, British approved. Please also note that when Ironsi was going to make his pioneer speech as head of the military government, two people were in the room with him, the American ambassador and the British High Commissioner. I think they must have had a pre-read of his speech, or maybe had inputs into that speech before he made that speech. And one of the very first things that Ironsi said was to abrogate the Houses of Parliament and abrogate the regional structure that we had negotiated and put in place a unitary government, which I think, in retrospect, was what the British would have preferred when they were leaving Nigeria, because it was easier to control the resources from that command structure. But this is what Ironsi did. The least argument you could say on his behalf was that, being a military man, he was used to the command structure and couldn't understand the regional structure and needed to put the military and the army and the government under his firm control. Again, I do sincerely believe that some people were advising him one way or the other, and I doubt it very much if it was either civil servants or politicians who still up until that time were hoping that there will be a quick transition back to colonial rule, maybe just hold hands, hold the space for a few days, a month or so, and take us back to colonial rule. But that was not to be. And from 1966 to 1975, Nigeria was 1979, I beg your pardon. Nigeria was firmly under a unitary government, under the control of the military. Again, the Civil War started in 1967. Again, it was most likely a fight over resources between France and Britain, because France supported Biafra, okay, and British insisted on keeping Nigeria one. Again, your guess is as good as mine as to why they wanted that. Somebody was saying recently that we should have just simply allowed Biafra to be, and then the West should have been, and the North should have been, and then we can decide on how we want to cooperate. Why were we going through all that battle to keep Nigeria one when Nigeria was not really one in the first place? Again, your guess is as good as mine. I think I can take a break here and then wait for your next question.
Thank you very much, Pastor. You've done well by just laying the groundwork and telling us how Nigeria came to be and a few about those things. But taking off from there, would you say, and I want you to compare how well Nigeria has fared among its contemporaries, not really African contemporaries, but maybe the Asian, West Asian, and Mid-Asians, countries like Singapore, Malaysia, even Korea, because Korea 50 years ago was not even, but today Korea is producing all manners of things. So, and I know that in the 60s, 70s, Nigeria was tracking well. We were industrializing. We were producing a lot in the country. Where did we miss that? What halted that trajectory? And is there a hope that a leader can come one day that can reinstate that kind of trajectory that we saw when we had Dunlop, Michelin, Thermocool, You know, we are making all manners of things. The West that you spoke about were actually coming to invest and producing here in Nigeria because it was the market that they wanted to be in. And all of a sudden, that is halted. Even those that are here now are leaving. Why did we have a halt in the industrialization process in Nigeria? And do you think it's possible to come back?
It is possible, but the hope of coming back is dimming by the day, because we now have in power a group of people who are really enjoying power, and maybe they don't know any better as to how to provide governance for the people. And we have a very, very expensive and challenging and extremely corrupt political process, and a very, very monetized process of handing over government. So there is a hope, but the hope is dimming, because we are beginning to institute a culture of monetized politics. And monetization of politics is not going to be able to produce very competent leadership going forward. But having said that, I think what really broke Nigeria's industrialization camel's back was a process that was started, I think, in 1978 or 79, or maybe 76, called indigenization. I think it is indigenization which was led and spearheaded by Olusegun Obasanjo and the Murtala Mohammed regime that began to really break Nigeria's economic back. You know, while we were under the leadership of Gowon, surrounded by some very, very competent civil servants, the British were happy. They were doing business in Nigeria. They
Can you please check Mr. President's audio? Okay, please. He'll be back in a short while. It's actually closing.
Okay, great. So everyone on the platform,
a controlled
actually...
shell. It was Barclays Bank.
No.
I'm sorry, interruptions, technology, here and there. Well, we will get it done one way or the other.
Sure.
It's interesting that when I'm comparing, I don't have these problems. Maybe we should just use the phone. But when I am now here on this side, I'm having problem. Maybe we need to pray and fast. So up until 1975, when Gowon was military head of note, that our currency used to be the Nigerian pound. It was Gowon that changed it to Naira, I think between 1970 and 1972. Note that we used to do right-hand drive. So most of our cars were imported from Britain, okay, until around that 1970, when we wanted to join our French neighbors and drive on the left. Maybe those were some of the policies that began to irritate the British a little bit. But most importantly, that indigenization decree, where Obasanjo now insisted that some companies should be in certain categories of company. The most that foreigners could own was 60%. They had to be highly technical. Other companies, 40%, and some companies, 20%. And the foreigners were harangued and chased and a little bit bullied out of Nigeria. A lot of civil servants and people made money through a quick transfer of shares. Some lawyers made money, some accountants made money, and so on and so forth, took over these companies and now began to run them. The British and a lot of the owners took their names, even from the company. An example is Farmad or Bata that I chair now. Okay, since the Bata family left, that company has not really been able to stand. And of course, they took a lot of their technology and their know-how. And that is where the slide of industrialization in Nigeria really began, okay? Either because the British deliberately took away a lot of these things in anger, or because they were forced out, or because they replaced themselves with a little bit of incompetence in terms of the Nigerian people that that took over those companies. And at the time, we also discovered oil. Oil became a serious thing in Nigeria, and our leaders decided to focus more on oil because the money was easy, the money was available. We had the Udoji Award, which Gowon did in error, which started a spiral of inflation in Nigeria because we're not really producing much. And a lot of those dollars that we got, or a lot of the naira that we got, we simply exchanged and imported inflation. We're buying electronics, we're buying all sorts of things. And that is where the shift from manufacturing in Nigeria turns to a purchase, a largely importation economy. It was that petrodollar, that Udoji Awards, that quest for foreign things that really began to cause our economy a lot of damage. So much so that by 1979-77, Obasanjo came with what he called his austerity measures and tried to reverse the trend by making us buy Nigerian things. Peugeot was the official car of the head of state. He drove a Peugeot instead of driving a Mercedes. Peugeot was being manufactured in Kaduna or assembled in Kaduna, and so on and so forth. He started the Operation Feed a Nation, OFN, which is what led him into farming, and encouraged Nigerians to go back to the farms, and so on and so forth. Because we are so quickly moved in 1973 away from a production economy to a largely an importation economy, where we're almost importing everything, including toothpicks, because the petrodollar was easily available. Money that Nigeria should have used to develop, Nigeria used it to consume, have parties, enjoy, do owambe, celebrate themselves, big houses, buy champagne, buy big wristwatches, drive fancy cars, wear fancy clothes, acquired and imported foreign tastes, and so on and so forth. And the slide has continued even till today, because we have not yet found that leader who had the courage, the sincerity, the capacity, the ability, the determination, the self-sacrificial nature to reverse the trend, because successive leaders were enjoying the booty of petrodollar. They've enjoyed it. They've lived the life. They've empowered themselves. They have enriched themselves. It's difficult to get a man who is having such a good time to correct himself and do what is right for a country like Nigeria. You asked about the Asian tigers. You spoke about Korea. You spoke about Malaysia. And you spoke about one of my favorite countries, Singapore. You know, I have in front of me a paper called Template for Leading a People Out of the Woods by Lee Kuan Yew. I think he did this in 1975. It says, may I briefly tell you the story of Singapore so that you understand why it is often told with admiration all over the world. We were a small, hopeless island. We thought we were so poor, it was impossible to survive on our own. We decided to go into a union with other countries to form Malaysia in 1963. That's 3 years after Nigeria's independence. But because of ethnic riots, we were expelled from the union in 1965. I, Prime Minister or Premier, broke down in tears because I did not see how we're going to survive as a country. It was so bad that we didn't even have potable water. We relied on other countries for water to drink. Listen to this. We had no mineral resources. We had no oil. We had no gold. We had no solid minerals. We had no agriculture, nothing. All we had were human beings and a few ports natural water bodies, but we did not give up. We decided to pick up the pieces of our lives and we resolved to turn our fortune around. So the first thing that you need is leadership resolve to turn fortune around. He says, today our story has changed. We are no longer a third world country. We are one of the 4 Asian tigers. Singapore is the only Asian country with AAA rating by all credit rating agencies. We are the 4th largest financial center in the world. We have one of the 5 busiest ports in the world. We manufacture. Manufacturing accounts for 30% of our GDP. We have the 3rd highest per capita income in the world. Unlike Malaysia, we don't have a single drop of crude oil on our land. But also unlike Malaysia, we are one of the biggest exporters of petroleum products. Our country is top 3 of oil refining centers in the world, yet we don't have oil. We are one of the biggest refineries in the world, yet we don't have anything. Let me shock you. We are the largest oil rig producers in the world. The World Bank ranks us as the easiest place to do business in the world. How can you move a country that had no resource, had nothing, into a country that has become a manufacturing hub? It is a question of determination and resolve. Lee Kuan Yew says, we're no magicians, we're no angels, we are human beings. How did we achieve this feat? Number 1, we recognize that quality leadership is non-negotiable. We recognize that quality leadership, Sonny, is non-negotiable. We recognize that quality leadership is non-negotiable. A few days ago, about a month ago, somebody sent me the pre-requirements for one to be Prime Minister of Singapore. They had a list of qualities. They said, number 1, he must have a first class as a first degree. Number 2, he must have 2 masters. Number 3, he must be husband of 1 wife and a limited family. Number 4, he must be very well traveled. Number 5, he must have run an organization with at least 500 to 1,000 staff or done very well in public service. Number 6, he must have no criminal record. Number 7, his children must not be drug users. Number 8, he must not even have committed 1 single traffic offense. 1 single traffic offense. 1 single traffic offense. If he had committed 1 single traffic offense, he's no longer qualified to be Prime Minister of Singapore. He must be visionary and he must have clearly his plan and roadmap for Singapore. Corruption is totally aboard. 0 tolerance for corruption. They gave one of their ministers a wristwatch the other day. The man was fired and they threatened to execute him. You can't drop a piece of paper on the ground in Singapore. You cannot smoke in public. You cannot chew gum in public. The rules are very strict and they keep to them and they live by example. Quality leadership is non-negotiable. The question for Nigeria is, how are we going to get that kind of leadership? It's a very tough one.
Pastor, we have been on that quest and I like where you stopped. So probably we would, and maybe you'll take over also from Benson Idahosa's message. And that's the question you have asked as well. Leadership. And let me just say this before you answer. Lee Kuan Yew that you spoke about, he was sort of an autocrat. He may have come in through some democratic means, but he ruled with some iron fist and as an autocrat. If you look at Dubai or the UAE, they have a ruling family. They also have transited from third world in less than 30 or 40 years to where they are today. One of the fastest growing African countries that everybody is going to now is Rwanda. The man has been there for close to 20 years. He's sort of an autocrat also, ruling with some iron fists. but a man that has vision. And if you look around most of those ancient tigers, they also had leaders that were not necessarily what you call, I wouldn't say they are not Democrats, but they weren't practicing the kind of democracy we are practicing, where every 4 years you have to go for an election and one man will come in. So the question is, ending from where you stopped, how can we get this kind of leadership in Nigeria that will transform things around?
I don't think it's so difficult, to be honest.
Yes.
What has deprived Nigeria of the ability to choose this leadership is greed. A lot of Nigerians are very, very greedy from top to bottom, including some very wealthy ones, and even including some spiritual leaders. Very, very greedy. Number two, selfishness, parochialism. Number three, tribalism that makes no sense. Tribalism that makes no sense. And number four, insincerity. Okay? And number five, which is a function of greed, is what you may call a lack of courage, fear, a lot of fear. So the only way, there are two ways by which Nigeria can, or three ways by which Nigeria can have transformational leadership as far as I am concerned. The fastest way is to pray to God Almighty and hope he performs the miracle, and just like he found Moses, drop on us through some accident, seemingly accident, the kind of leader we want. Almost the way Obasanjo emerged in 1999. Okay, some seeming accident. There was so much confusion in the whole place, and like him or hate him, somehow or the other, there was a selection process. Please note that Obasanjo was selected in 1999. Some elders of Nigeria, Babangida and all these people, T.Y. Danjuma and a few people, Ayoku and people like that, sat together and said, Nigeria has been through so much pain, okay? So much pain. Abiola died, Abacha died, this, that. Oh, let us try and look for somebody that will try and assuage all the pain. Somebody that the Yorubas who had been beaten up and felt so bad with Abiola's stolen mandate would tolerate. Somebody that the army will be comfortable with. Somebody that the Northerners will not feel too intimidated with and be able to work with. And the only person that fitted that description was Olusegun Obasanjo. Olusegun Obasanjo, because he was an army general, so the army knew him, they were comfortable with him. Two, he was a Yoruba man, so the Yorubas would accept him as an alternative. Not only that, he was even from Abeokuta, the same stock as Abiola. Three, the Northerners felt they could work with him. Why? In 1982 or 1979, he had conducted an election wherein he handed over to Shagari, even under a cloud of 12 2/3. He just rumble-rolls the thing and said, no, they can work. Instead of 13 states, 12 2/3, give it to Shagari. And the Northerners never forgot that. They never forgot that. And that gave him that edge. And even when he was handing over power in 2007, he did almost the same thing. Brought in Yar'Adua, because he always was, at the very least, sensitive to the Northern peculiarity and the Northern interest. So that's how he emerged. Okay, he wasn't even a politician at that time. He was even in prison at that time. So whatever reason Abacha put him in prison for, they waved it aside. They gave him a pardon, brought him out, rehabilitated him, gave him funding, okay? And then the campaign started. So they walked from the answer back to the question. We need maybe another process like that, to be honest, among well-thinking Nigerians who are courageous. What has happened is that over the last few years, because of economic gain, the courage of a lot of Nigerians have been taken because government has become so powerful. They're so dependent on government for their sustenance that everybody's afraid to say anything against the government of the day. You know, most people are quite afraid to say it. So they've had this balancing act of keeping the power through negotiation between APC and PDP, just through negotiation, balancing act, depending on who misbehaved or who behaved best. But they are all one leadership club, as far as I'm concerned. And they've held Nigeria to the jugular and not really governed Nigeria for the interest of the average Nigerian, but more for their own personal gain. And this is why Nigeria is in this kind of mess that we're in today. So I can say that maybe Obasanjo was probably the best of the lot, okay? But then he handed over to Yar'Adua, who was not well enough to manage the country. He handed over to Jonathan, who, well, I just say, didn't quite have the experience and the knowledge and the depth and the determination and the courage to drive through the needed policies to make a change in Nigeria. We had to make so many compromises here and there. It was a little bit weak, they said, and other people were governing by proxy. Buhari came and it was a near disaster, totally near disaster. It wasn't the Buhari we thought in 1983, draconian, firm, disciplined, rigid, that came out in 2015. It was a totally different Buhari. Everybody was shocked, including myself. Apparently, it was Idi Agbon that must have been running government in those days. Buhari had the peculiar, record of really not taking any decisions and not having a vision and a direction in which he wanted to take Nigeria. Now here we are with our present leader, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and everybody can see that the challenge is difficult. It's the firmness, the sincerity, the direction, the determination that we need is really not there. You have policy somersaults. You have consumption that is unbearably high and all manners of things. You have policies that seem not well thought out and so on and so forth. And we can't even see the direction that we're going. So this is the history of Nigeria since 1999 to date. And I think all the leaders that have led Nigeria from that time till today are all culpable. They are all culpable because they just have not provided the kind of leadership that we need. You know, Lee Kuan Yew says quality leadership is non-negotiable. If the leaders are good, the followers will be good. So if Nigeria is not good, if the followers are not good, which is a fact today, it means that our leaders have not been good. Leaders take critical decisions. They show direction. That's why they're called leaders. A dog should be wagging the tail, not the tail wagging the dog. You don't blame a passenger for bad driving. Countries are transformed by good leadership. Countries are transformed by good leadership. Why does a country need competent and exemplary leaders? Development starts from visioning. No country develops by accident or coincidence. Development is planned. Development is planned. And development is planned by the leader. Exemplary leadership, sacrificial leadership. He says they all went for a conference somewhere. The leader of Bangladesh came in a big Boeing 707 with Bangladesh written on it. He, Lee Kuan Yew, came in commercial flight. And then when he was leaving the conference 8 days later, the plane of Bangladesh was still there, sat on the tarmac for 8 days, earning nothing, paying fees. The leader of Bangladesh was enjoying himself. When he was leaving, he had gone shopping, bags and bags of shopping items. Yet, he came to that conference to look for aid from the British or from the Americans. How can they give you aid when you come and pack a whole plane on the tarmac for 8 days? Well, it's laughable. He says the president of Nigeria at that time came in his own private jet. The president of Kenya came in his own private jet, yet all of them were looking for aid. What kind of irony is that? How can you come begging in style and so on and so forth, and you say you need money? A leader must understand the critical issues, put together a team, shares his visions with them, assigns them responsibilities, and leads them from the front. Leads them from the front. We cannot develop in Nigeria if we do not get our leadership recruitment process right. We cannot. You know, as I said, Olusegun Obasanjo has been one of the best. Came, met a huge debt profile, began to cut down expenditure, began to build up reserves, began to pay the debt. And when he was seeing the thing, called the Paris Club, called all of them together, started to negotiate, got a minister of finance who had the track record and who had the political and economic bandwidth, who knew their language, who could talk to them and negotiate Nigeria's debt to zero, and began to bring us out of the woods. He began to restructure the economy to make us a more productive economy. He began to put in discipline in place, EFCC, and all these manners of things, so that the fear of corruption was limited, and so on and so forth. And he worked tirelessly, even till today at the age of 90. He's still tireless all over the place, going here, going there, solving problems, accessible. You could see him, he would talk to you, he would listen to you. He wasn't afraid to take risks and to take some critically hard decisions, okay? And that is where he left us. But Yar'Adua took over, and within 6 months, 1 year, Jonathan came, 1.5 years, and went back to owing all over the place because people just went on a shopping spree. These are the things that have led Nigeria to where it is. So collectively, a lot of them have really not done right by Nigeria. And if we don't like where we are, we should call all of them, starting from 1960 to date, sit them in a room and tell them to account for their stewardship, rate them, comment on them, and then tell them that you did well here, you didn't do well there. Therefore, we need to look for a certain type of leader. We were talking about leaders being autocratic and being this and that. First of all, for you to have development in an economy, you need about 20 to 30 years of unbroken leadership in a certain direction. You know, just a few days ago, myself and Olu were coming from somewhere and we're looking at what had happened in Lagos State. Olu was telling me that some of the things that Fashola started, Ambode came and stopped them and forgot about them, abandoned them. Some of the things that Ambode started, so Olu came, didn't look in that direction, and so on and so forth. And therefore, the consistency of leadership, the master plan that should have been implemented was not implemented. And a lot of states are like that. Once the new governor comes in, and I said to him, but they were all from the same party. It didn't matter. So that means that the party itself had no master plan, had no, or they decided to jettison the party master plan if they had one. They had no direction, and so on and so forth. So this is part of the challenge that we'll be having. You know, white elephants all over the place, both at federal and different state levels. Almost every state has the same problem. A new governor comes in, he tries to rubbish the old governor. My two friends were governors in Cross River State. One started Tinapa, the other came in, cancelled it, and this and that, and the other one. The debt burden was too high, not well thought through. Today, a lot of resources going into Tinapa, yet it hasn't seen the light of day. So you have a lot of these things. You know, one of the first things we even need to do in Nigeria is an audit of all abandoned projects. You will find that a lot of Nigeria's money is trapped in these abandoned projects. And if only we could find a way by which we can bring the projects up, or even sell the assets and get other people to develop them, Nigeria might be able to realize a lot of money. Abandoned projects, you know, all over the place. Abandoned real estate, all over the place. There's a lot of money that the federal government has, but they don't even just know where to find it and how to pick it up. That will be one of the things that might even reflate our economy. You know, the other day they said we had some houses in London that the government had just abandoned. They were derelict. They were there. That's a wasting resource. Maybe £1 million, maybe £2 million can do something in today's Nigeria's economy, but it's just there. Liverpool somewhere, they have forgotten about it, and so on and so forth. So even if all we do is the harvest mine in Nigeria, and asset mine in Nigeria of all the abandoned projects, right in front of me here is the old Federal Secretariat, a beautiful building. My father used to work there, abandoned for the past 15 to 20 years. Nothing happening, a wasted resource. I was driving into office just now, Bedwell Road. There was an old house that used to belong to the prisons. I used to go to parties there when my friend's father was in the prisons or customs. They lived there. I looked at the house now. Abandoned, empty, run down. There's another house here on Temple, abandoned, run down. You don't do things like that and you say you are looking for money. You know, this is one of the challenges of Nigeria, and we just pray and hope that our leaders begin to look into these things and come up first with that sincerity and that determination to make Nigeria great, or we have a process of relooking at the present leadership recruitment process and agreeing amongst ourselves what to do. So the first thing is God giving us a great leader. The second is that those who know should sit around the table like we did in 1999 and decide that this is the leadership direction we're going. And then number three is to, which is the most painful and the longest, if you are able to educate all Nigerians and bring them to a level of awareness where they will stand for their rights and know right from wrong, good from bad, and be able to take the leadership recruitment decisions by themselves, then they may be able to choose right. But right now, politics is monetized. Poverty is used as a weapon. People are so poor that if you give them 10,000 naira, 20, 30,000 naira, they will do anything you say and select any kind of leader you instruct them to. It's simply not going to work until Nigerians can say, no, this is what I prefer. The Bible says that people gathered together to make David king because they knew the kind of leader they wanted. Until we can get rid of poverty and have people enlightened and people informed and people knowledgeable and have the democracy working where one vote counts, we may not be able to get out of this leadership problem.
Thank you, Pastor. Thank you. Before I open it up for questions and I comment, I see we have quite a good attendance today. We have about almost 130 people, and I'm sure it's because of the topic and the focus that we are going. And, you know, we started ALG about 4 or 5 years ago, and this has been the trust and your desire and your passion. In the 4 years that we have been driving this process, how will you rate our success in terms of trying to improve the leadership recruitment process, engaging the political class, and doing what is right by Nigeria? All the presentations, we've had various presentations from different speakers, and I'm sure you can't remember all of them, but in your own view, people are ready to engage now after this, so maybe you keep the response a bit short, but where do we go from here? What is the best route? How do you think we can get out from where we are now?
Thank you very much, Sonny, and that's a good question, and it's a pain in my heart. And this is where I need to appeal to you, to Jumoke, to Olu, to Albert, and if we can find Tayo to come and help me. Now, we've done part one of our job. We have information, we have material, we know people. What ALG was designed to do was to gather information. What is the problem with Nigeria? What are the solutions? We have 4 years since 2020 of great information. Number two, find out who can do what in Nigeria from high to low. We've had so many people, young people, Northerners, Easterners, Westerners, Muslims, Christians, even we've had an atheist or agnostic on this platform. Many people with many ideas who are willing, some, to put themselves forward. Number three, we have material that will be useful as a template to any well-meaning government to implement. What we now need to do is to collate these things together and to implement our action points, which is number one, as I said, begin to educate the people. It's not going to be easy, but we have to start from somewhere. Already, my dear sister Alero Otobo and her group are doing something similar to that. We can do our own or we can work with them, but we need to make a quick work of informing people. We have a community development program. You know, this my incursion into politics with my brother has shown me clearly that we need to inform the people in the rural areas, to educate them, to let them know. A lot of them are blind. They're being led by half-blind people into all manners of things, and they're not knowing what to do. We need to get the information to them to be able to tell right from wrong, left from right. They don't know. They're just doing whatever they want, and people are using them anyhow as cannon fodder. We need to get that information out there. We need to get our blue books or our green books and put it in the hands of the respective governments. We pray that they will use them. If they choose to use them, fantastic. If they choose not to use them, fine, that's up to them. But we've done our job. We've given them a template. This is the way we would like things can be done. Number three, we have a directory of competent people, Easterners, Westerners, Yoruba, Hausa, Fulani, young people, old people, big people, small people, low people, high people, a whole directory of different kinds of people. I mean, look at it, 52 weeks or 50 weeks times 4 years. That's a lot of people who have one competence or the other, or who can engage somebody who has one competence or the other. We have material that are ready to work. We have people from the diaspora who are on this platform every day, making comments and all that. We need to move, Sonny. We need to now begin to drive this thing home. We're non-partisan, okay? We're non-aligned. We don't really care who is in government, blue, black, or red. What we want is somebody who is competent, somebody who is capable, somebody who is honest, somebody who is sincere, somebody who is determined, somebody who is qualified, somebody who is exposed, somebody who is visionary, somebody who is sacrificial, somebody who loves Nigeria and is ready to do anything to make Nigeria work and to make Nigeria work well. And what does Nigeria need to work? What it needs is a reduction in its expenditure. What it needs is a production of all its raw materials and to manufacture and add value. What it needs is available and affordable education and empowerment and upskilling for its citizens. What it needs is a clean and easy environment for people to operate and function in, where life and life living is a little bit easier and easier to manipulate. This is what Nigeria needs, an environment where people can function, an environment where its resources are produced, an environment where its people can think and add their own value to the economy. It's not rocket science. And any well-meaning person, instead of digging their hands into the till, should just apply their brains to make this thing happen. And they themselves will have more than enough to live on and for their generations yet unborn to live on. This is what our politicians don't understand. They want consumption today. They want to live a life today. They want to buy big wristwatches today. They want to drive fat cars today. They want to move in big convoys today. I look at some of the governorship convoys, 15 cars, 20 cars. What a waste of resource. Where are they all going to? Going to commission one little bridge on one little road and the whole nation stops. Why are they wasting time? Wasting time. The bridge has been built. Why should 15 people be running up and down, petrol, everything, just to make the bridge, just to declare the bridge open? If you want to publicize it, publicize it. Why are we wasting so much resource? A president is coming. The whole ministry shuts down. Everybody goes to meet him at the airport. What for? Why is everybody going there to meet him at the airport? What are they going to do? Are they going to have a council meeting there? Governor is coming. The same thing. Everything protocol. What a waste of resource. What a waste of resource. What a waste of resource. A president just needs his aides and his security. Let him go and do his job. Why is the whole place in the airport? What do we need that for? I don't understand it. We just keep running all over the place, here, there, everywhere. Government apologies, government followers, just jumping up and down, looking for procurement. Go and work hard. If the environment is conducive, everybody can work and produce. But when you know that when you try to work, they will break your leg, they will create a rule, they will make it difficult, make it hostile. You can't get your this, you can't get your that, this and that. You just go around following them up and down, begging them for contracts. I mean,
Okay, Pastor.
I don't get it. I don't get it.
If we allow you, you can talk till the program
I don't
ends.
get it, Sonny. I don't get it.
I know, Pastor, you don't get it. You're very passionate.
I don't get
Let's
it at
allow
all.
the people to chime in a bit, and maybe there may be some questions that you'll be able to clarify one or two things or a few comments that we may have. I see 4 hands raised already, and Jumoke Akintaylor will handle the Q&A session. Jumoke, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, go ahead.
Mr. President, thank you. I think that's probably the most brilliant presentation on Nigeria that I have ever listened to. And since this is a call to action, I'm just going to ask everyone on this platform to share this information because it's part of that knowledge that we need. It is part of involvement. And, as Mr. President was speaking, I just did a quick search on the population or the percentage of the political class. 0.005% are the ones that hold us hostage. The total population of politicians are 11,000, and I'll put that out of 220 something million people. We have 11,000. Give me 1 second, I'm pulling it up. 11,000 and change really directing us, 11,107. And this call to action is for all of us. It's to all of us to begin to engage. I know your passionate plea for us to move from just talking to action. And this is really for all of us to start working towards that Nigeria. And I think it's possible. I have a lot of hands up. And I'm going to ask everyone, because we have a lot of hands up, to please keep your comments very short so that we can take more people. Auntie Yemisi, please go ahead. I'll give you about 45 seconds to 60 seconds. Everyone will probably have that. Please go ahead. Go ahead, ma. And if you want your video on, please ask and we'll turn it on for you. We disabled it because of a hacker entered the room. So thank you.
I'm cool. Don't need a video. I prefer to watch the beautiful faces like yours. Let me thank Pastor Itua for this very brilliant analysis of our journey so far. But please give me the opportunity to really stress why we're the way we are. Remember that first documentary where the narrator talked about the fact that Regent Street, the person that decorated the scenery for the independence, was somebody who had decorated Regent Street. Obviously, somebody British. The music that was playing was British. I remember being punished in school for speaking vernacular, So we have been deeply brainwashed. And unlike India, we didn't have to struggle so much for our independence. They decided in the parliament in Britain that they didn't want the experience of India and all the fight they had to do. So they gave us the independence, but they made sure that they captured the leaders that were going to lead us. If we want to deal with the culture of monetized politics, we have to advocate for laws to regulate the funding of political parties. And Pastor Sunday talked about Lee Kuan Yew and Kagame in Rwanda. They are not Democrats. So the question for us in Nigeria is, are we ready for such leaders who will abrogate our human rights and behave in the way that they do, and sacrifice that for the economic development, our own freedoms? So that's a conversation we have to have. I'll just some quick points about next steps. I don't envy anyone trying to manage a country like Nigeria. As Pastor Ito said, we have descended into a very, very low level. Let's not call it an abyss. So we have to build back from the local government level to the state, to the federal. We have to find ways to build the capacity of officials at that level. I am working closely at the local government level, and I'm telling you for real, unless we do something like what Imokwede's foundation is doing with the federal government, supporting the public service, capacity building and all that, unless ALG and others would begin to look at how we can build the capacity at the local government, we're really going to continue to have the same problem. And we as individuals must invest in the local economy, support entrepreneurs to become financially independent with the capacity to engage in the political process. Educating the people is good. Our people are quite brilliant. If you talk to them, they know. They understand politics more than you and I do. But without the economic wherewithal, they are at the mercy of unscrupulous leaders. They therefore demand for their pound of flesh during elections, and the vicious cycle continues. So let's all eat, wear, and live in Nigeria-made goods and services and patronize ourselves. Let's develop homegrown centric solutions with the available technology and innovation that's now available to everyone. Let's all join political parties. If you are younger than me at 77, and I don't think I have the energy again, but I encourage everybody to do that and run for office. Join these political parties, infiltrate them, and change the culture from within. Finally, let's all organize effectively to monitor budgets in collaboration with organizations like Budget. Thank you once again. Thank you for the brilliant work you are doing.
Thank you, ma. Someone timed you and put it at over 2 minutes, so that means I have to give everyone else 2 minutes. Go ahead, Samuel Dada. I would really appreciate if you guys, if the rest of you can keep it short so that we can take more people. Mr. Dada, please go ahead.
Oh yeah, good day everyone. Thank you so much. Pastor, thank you for the good job. I think I joined this group 4 years ago when it started, and I tried to work with a group, bringing some calibers of people like late Obadiah Laifa, Aisha Yusuf, Showore, Delefarotimi, all the likes. Pastor, I felt you where you were talking. I was even almost crying because your voice was shaking. I was like, Pastor is really frustrated with this situation. Just the same thing. I worked vigorously for almost 7 years up and down for Nigerians to be great. But at the end of the day, things projects to us here. I know the group is doing greatly. Everyone that was working with you, Pastor, they are doing a good job. I want them to go into the manifesto of some parties, not the existing party. I'm profiling the solution now. I'm not talking about PDP, APC, Labour. I'm talking about the party of this Prince Adebowale, the party of Omoyele Sowore, where I belong, some younger generations, because I believe in generational shift of in our political space. I won't lie to you, because all those old political rogues, they can't do anything. You can see where they were leaning down for Tinubu in the house there, where they were greeting him. That was why I was talking about Obasanjo 13th of January last year on this platform, when we're talking about respect and politics, because they tend to use that respect to camouflage their own their own duty in terms of doing the politics to benefit the people. But they will just tell you that, no, because they are headers, you just have to keep short. And that is not the issue. The issue is this money, how you guys are spending it. We really go in that direction. We remember the daughter of Obasanjo writing a long letter that the father know that Yaradua will die very soon and impose it on us. And here we are today. But all these things, because of respect, is an header, you can't talk. Because that day, I couldn't ask the question the way I wanted because Baba was just on his with himself because he found my questions to be somehow, insulting. Because that is the problem. Now, going back to my solution, if we can go into those manifestos, your group, the HGA group, go into those manifestos of people that has these qualities that will bring enabling environment for Nigerians. Maybe we can start from there. And then we will find a solution where we will sit all these party leaders down with maybe with their collaborators, how we can move forward from now before 2027. Because if anybody thinks that all these existing parties, maybe people should join party and they will have any effect, we can never have any effect. No matter how young you are, if you join any existing party, PDP or APC, nothing good will come out of you. I have friends in this APC. I don't want to mention them. They were in my wedding. They were in this government as I'm talking right now. They were running up and down. They are youth. But what they are doing, I applaud what they are doing, but it doesn't make any effect.
Can you stick to recommendations on the way forward, since this is a call to action, if you don't mind? Because Auntie Yemisi's comments were along those lines. If we want to keep it along those lines, what is the next step, the way forward? Please continue along those lines. Thank you.
Okay. Like I was saying, if we can get these calibers of people from this political party I just mentioned, then we will sit them down that, what are your plans? These are your manifestos. How do you think this can work for the country? So maybe from there, they can be able to tell us, then we bring them to this platform. At the end of the day, we need to be partisan, Pastor. We need to align ourselves with a party that will portray those values, those morals we want in our country. Because we can't just say that people should join political party. At the end of the day, nothing changes. So I think we can call them back. Like the likes of Chioma Agwegu, they are very good people there. They can work for the country. Though they don't want to run it, they don't want to go into politics, but they can work underground. Yemi Adamoleko, these are good people that are working vigorously on their own. We can call all these people together, and then these people, they can come with those guys that came out in the last election. The younger ones, Prince Adebayo, Omoyele, and the likes. We call all of them. But okay, these are your manifestos. How can you see this working with our present situation in Nigeria? So with that, I think we can move from there. That is my own solution. I think that can work for now, because the way we are going, there's nothing tangible that can come out of this government we have now. And if you should look at it very well, when people say that our people are ignorant, it is only those that are uneducated that are ignorant. And those ones are ignorant because of what they do.
I think we've exceeded the 2 minutes. Apologies. I have about 11 hands up. Thank you so much. And I'm sure you are a member of the House, so you'll be able to share more comments, more insight internally. Thank you. I appreciate your comments. Good evening, sir. Good evening, Mr. Fadile. Please go ahead with your question or comments.
Yeah, thank you very much. Long time no see.
Welcome back.
Yeah, that's right. Very, very educative and historical expose by my friend. Maybe I should ask him my brother too, just for him to elaborate how fellowship and effective institutions can help us out, not just the leadership. We have have too much on leadership's failure. What about the fellowship? Do we have institutions that can support what we are talking about? That's just the two questions, the two areas I want him to address and see that our problem is not just leadership, even fellowship. And then we don't have institutions that can withstand any individuals or any of the leaders. Take America, for instance, but for the institution, Donald Trump will still be in power today. The institutions stood against him. Thank you, Prof. I say, Prof. Thank you, Pastor, and long time no see.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm going to take Pastor Funke Awolowo. I'll take Professor Nike Grade. I'll take
No.
Victor.
If you want me to
No.
respond.
No, I just want to list the number of people that we're going to take because we have too many hands up, and then we'll close it after I mention those names. Then you take 2 or 3 at a time. Is that okay? I just want to list those that we're taking.
I can take these 3.
Okay. So yes, please go ahead and take those 3. So the last person we'll be taking is Mr. Ashiru. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, all right, no problem. I like what my auntie sister Yemisi said. She has really broken down into smaller bits the things we should be doing. You understand? Invest in local economy, join political parties. These are all the things we must be advocating for. But I think what is missing is a driver to drive this process of change in Nigeria. It's not going to drive itself. You know, it took a Nelson Mandela to provoke change in South Africa and the ANC, or whatever they called themselves at that time. It's taken a Kigali to drive change in Rwanda. Luckily for him, he's the one in charge. It took a Jerry Rawlings to drive some kind of change in Ghana. And this is the position that ALG2 must try and fill, to begin to be the catalyst to drive this change, to motivate the people, to encourage them, to inspire them as to what we need to do. If we just keep it at conversation, we should, nobody will do it and it will not get done. So that's my appeal to all of us on ALG, to offer ourselves to be the catalyst that will drive this change, at least along the lines that we have recognized it. What we need now is a lot of resource and a lot of funding to drive the change. And that is where the diaspora comes in. And this is really an appeal to the diaspora. They are the ones that can help us to drive the liberation of Nigeria. And God has done it before in the Bible. Moses was in diaspora. He had to come out of diaspora and drive that change, okay? And all we need really from the diaspora is resource. If we're going to inform people at the grassroots, we need information. If we're going to encourage, we need resource. We need money to go and tell them. If we're going to encourage some young people who haven't stolen money to go into politics, we need some money to encourage them to start their political journey. If we're going to empower people, like Sister Yemisi has said, and get them to work hard, we need some money to motivate them. If we're going to educate people and tell them what to do, we need some money. Ike is spending a lot of money educating the civil service. It's not small at all. I have a rough idea of how much money and energy is putting in there. Even Tony Elumelu, who is doing an African-wide thing, is voting millions and millions of dollars to do it. So we need money. And this is where diaspora comes in. $100 from 1 million people every month will do a great change in this Nigeria that we're in. $100 fund to do a great change. Every kobo will be accounted for. We will provide information, we provide direction, we provide knowledge, we provide encouragement, we provide emancipation, we give people courage, we tell them what to do, and over time, with or without government, Nigerians will take their lives into their own hands if only somebody can motivate them along a certain direction. Right now, the feeling of helplessness is because nobody is ready to bail the cat. We're not quarreling with any government. We're not fighting them. We're not trying to overturn them. All we're trying to do is encourage people to be self-sufficient and to know in what direction they're going. So that is what we need. As for my brother Samuel Dada, manifesto of some of those parties, yes, it's part of the process. We can call 1 or 2 of them to join us if they're willing and they're not selfish and they're not self-opinionated, okay? But we must be careful because my own experience in politics, okay, is that a lot of these parties, people establish them, they do minimal work, and they use them to negotiate for money with whichever party is leading. I know the number of people that came to negotiate with my brother to say they were ready to collapse their structure, to follow him, to support him, At the end of the day, they'll write you an invoice. Give us this, give us this. Even you invite them for a meeting, you pay them. They invite you for a meeting, you pay them. They always say they want transportation. Everything is terribly monetized. So some of those parties, they know they're going nowhere. They just do minimal work, they position themselves, and then they wait. It's a transaction, it's business. So a lot of them are not serious. But if we find one or two of them that are serious and are committed, we can work with them, where manifesto or no manifesto. Then, as for my brother, Mr. Fadile, God bless you. I don't know where you've been, but it's good to see you back. I know you've sacrificed a lot for Nigeria. I know you've been through the crucible. I know that, quite frankly, you wish you could do more, and I hope you can do more. Institutions, it is people that make institutions. What is missing is that there's not been enough consistency of the right kind of people in our institutions to make them institutions, okay? Shell is working well because there's been consistency of the right kind of people. But EFCC, NDLE, and all these places, even INEC, has not been able to institutionalize itself because there's not been a consistency of the right kind of people in those institutions. Today, they are accusing INEC of all sorts of things because it's not been a good, consistent institution managed by proper people who have been sanctioned for bad behavior. That is the problem that we're having. And that's why we really do not have any good institutions in Nigeria. Some of our governments are deliberately destroyed, corrupted, maligned these institutions. They've done it with the judiciary. At the time, we thought the judiciary was making progress. But now we see that the judiciary also, government has gone in there and they have exposed them to all manners of things. Now, so that is the problem with institutions. They cannot stand the leaders, you know. The parliament cannot stand the executive. The executive is directing the parliament. All of them owe each other favors and so on and so forth. And everything has come to a standstill. That is why the institutions, we cannot rely on them. So part of our work as ALG is to also help to rebuild some of these institutions with the right kind of people, the right kind of laws, institutions that stand on their own. INEC can never be an institution you can rely on as long as it depends on government for appointment, government for funding. Of course, he who pays the piper will dictate the tune. So we need to really come out of this. But if the diaspora are now okay and said, you know what, we will fund INEC, okay? And INEC must be totally independent, has nothing to do with government. We'll fund INEC. Let INEC be funded by an institution that does not have anything to do with political process. And if we catch any INEC official taking a drop of bribe, that official is going to jail immediately. And then you give them the capacity, you pay them well, you educate them, you expose them so that they're not tainted or tempted by $1 million, $2 million, means nothing to them. Their name is more important than whatever you can offer them in terms of money. Then you begin to build an institution. But as long as executive is funding INEC, I mean, come on, let's be real now. There is just not going to be possible. So that's why you don't have institutions in Nigeria. The police can be an institution. Government funds police. Judiciary cannot be an institution. Government funds judiciary. INEC cannot be an institution. Neither can EFCC. They cannot be. Everybody that had a case in EFCC 5, 6, 7 years ago, most of them have joined the ruling party. The cases have been put in abeyance. Everybody's quiet. Nobody's talking about them. The day they jump to another party or misbehave, they will bring out the case again. You know what they did to Babangida recently when he was complaining about one or two things? Suddenly you saw in the papers that the case of Dele Giwa that has not quite finished this, they are going to open the investigation again. Babangida kept quiet. He didn't say anything again. I saw it. He started complaining, saying one or two things. I just saw him Punch a few days later. Dele Giwa case, somebody is going to reopen it again. Blah, 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 blah. And whatever I was complaining about, either they discussed and negotiated, everything went quiet. And I didn't say anything about Dele Giwa again. This is how they use institutions in Nigeria. This is how they silence people all over the place. This is how they take away your ability to talk, to vocalize what you feel. But you see, Nigeria is a great country, and Nigeria can be beautiful for everybody if we all decide that we want to make Nigeria great. If we all decide that Nigeria is greater than us as individuals, it is that willingness to make that sacrifice. And maybe some people say, Itwa, you are naive, you are simplistic, you don't understand what's going on, blah, 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 blah. It is true. But you know, sometimes it is simple things that work the best. You keep it simple and it will work. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So we have 6 hands up, and these are the last hands that we're going to take. Pastor Awolowo, Professor Grange, Dr. Charles, Dr. Ezekiel, Professor Kome, and Mr. Ashiru. So I'll go ahead and take Pastor Funke. Please go ahead with your question or comment.
All right. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. I want to quote the scriptures concerning what we're doing here. The Lord showed me in Malachi chapter 3 and verse 16. It says, "Then they that feared the Lord spoke often to one another, and the Lord hearkened and heard it, and a book of remembrance was given." It goes on. I don't want to take your time. What am I saying? We need a book of remembrance here. What will the book be? If we are called upon to influence the government today, what will we bring in terms of agriculture, health, education, the economy? We must have things. This is why we meet, and we must have it documented and even sent or readily available. What happened to Buhari was that he was fighting for Nigeria to be in power, but when he got into power, he was not ready at all. And that's, it's a style, it's a pattern that I've seen. We say a lot of things, discussions flow, but like my son said to me the other day, he said, "Mom, if you are called into this company, what are the first things you will do? Since you know this, you know that." And I was, shocked. Really, we must be ready, and we must have documents available. And Pastor Itwa, when they call on you, you must have solution for INEC readily documented and all that. Apart from that, we are talking democracy, we are talking all that. But what I noticed with the Asian countries, Pastor Itwa mentioned, was that a lot of their culture was not compromised the way we compromised ours. And what is happening is that they were ready. As soon as they could adopt certain things from the Western world, they went into their own system. But you see, what has happened is that a lot of what we are over the years has disappeared and dissipated. And what is happening is that everything that they have imposed on us is not working right now. Why? Because we sold out a lot. Why is it in England, when you go to America, you must eat Chinese, at least in the month? You must eat Indian food, and can we really give them our amala and all that after we adopted English and all that? And that goes to, what we are saying about education. I remember, the present president, Mama Oloja, the mother, she worked with us. I didn't see that she went to school, but she held the whole of Lagos Island. She held it because, when she was sent into the market, she dealt with the bankers, she dealt with the apprentices, she did a lot because she had her thinking cap. So it's not altogether about democracy, all those adopted things. We have to learn to go back to the nitty-gritty, what works for Nigeria. If it's the obas, the chiefs that we are going to bring on, because definitely what we have adopted is not working with us, and I don't think it will work. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pastor Funke. Go ahead, Professor Grange. Please go ahead, ma.
Thank you very much. Thank you, my dear pastor and nephew. I say pastor when I want to feel young, and when I'm my true age, I call you my nephew. So thank you very much for that very illuminating presentation. Those of us who have lived through it all, first as young people, and now in our old age, we could follow very well the trajectory that you have told us. Although at that time we didn't really appreciate it. Right now, I believe that the first thing we have to do is to make our children understand how we are where we are. These children are, they are losing their identity very fast. Even those in Nigeria, they are losing their identity because all they know about is what is happening in the developed countries. Now, history has been canceled from their studies in schools. I hope it's back, but definitely we have to make sure that they do know of their own heritage. That's number one. Number two, one question I would like to ask is, how did Lee Kuan Yew become the leader, transformative leader? We need to find out that because, is it by divine provision or, what happened? Because their country too was quite divided. They had different ethnic groups. And one just doesn't know how they managed to come together to agree on having Lee Kuan Yew. That's number two. The last one, my last comment has to do with institutions. Institutions have already been weakened, and it's very, very difficult to rely on them to make changes without, really going all out to strengthen them, particularly with the correct leadership. They too, right now, they are at the mercy of, what is going on nationwide. They now choose their leaders by compromise. So we need to look at that. Then the Directory of Competent People, thank you very much for adding the diaspora. And it is time that we actually engage the diaspora before they go along the same line as what is happening in Nigeria, because ethnicity is beginning to creep in, even in the diaspora. So, really, we need to take your advice very strongly there. And I'm glad that Dr. Charles is going to speak after me. I'm sure he will tell us more about that. Finally, again, thank you. I think we should always think not only in terms of the past, but the future of these children. I am so worried about these children because they are really not imbibing any family values. Nothing at all. They are just thrown out there. And some of them who are not able to go to school, well, good luck to us. Those who are in school, they are not learning the correct things. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
So
Kunje.
1 second, Mr. President, you take after Charles, you take those three, and I think we have two more hands. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Charles, Dr. Charles.
Okay, thank you, Kunje. Pastor Rito, thank you for that very brilliant presentation, which I believe came out of your heart. I first met you, I think, a little over 2-3 years ago, when you were having a session for Professor Kingsley Moghalu. You probably remember, many of us were watching what was going on, talking about the issues of Nigeria and how to move Nigeria forward. I made a comment on the chat window. I said, welcome to our frustration. Welcome to the dysfunction. I think this experience, this time that you took out to campaign with your brother or to experience what is going on, I'm glad that has rekindled the passion, if you will, the vision of what ALG is supposed to be doing. And in the life of a people, it usually happens this way. It comes a time when people say, you know what, I'm going to get out of my comfort zone and go out and really not just speak truth to power, but actually become an active participant of what is going on. And Jumoke read the so-called political class, the people we have branded political class, is much less than who we are as as a group of individuals who really want to address the issues of Nigeria, I would recommend for anyone that wants to go and look at the Electoral Act that was just, I think, approved a little over 2 years ago. And you know, when Pastor Itua talks about monetizing the process, read the Electoral Act and see what is there and see some of the gaps that can be plugged. I think we can, as people here who are committed to a more functional Nigeria, we can start from there. The other area that people have been talking about is the restructuring. Is that going to solve our problems? Don't know. But at least let's give it a chance and see. Let's talk about it, let's discuss it, and take action items and say what role is ALG going to play in this. Since we're interested in solving the problems of our people, I don't particularly have anything against tribalism, because we just have to accept that's who we are. But once we accept that, let's agree to move forward and find solutions to our problems. And I think that if we are, like Pastor Itua was talking about today, with that type of fire, I think we can address our issues. We have our own versions of Kingami in Nigeria. We have our own versions of what's the gentleman from Ghana, Rawlings. We have them in Nigeria. They abound everywhere. Perhaps, I don't know, Oloyinka is going to be one of those people that will lead our people out of this doldrum that we are in. Until we do that, we will continue to be like the children of Israel, continue to go in the desert and suffering day and night. But the answer is before us. Thank you.
Thank you. Over to you, Mr. President, and then we'll take the last two.
All right. Let me thank my Aburo Funke for her love for Nigeria. She's a chief of the old block. Her grandfather, Chief Obafemi Awolowo, was one of those people we greatly admired in Western Nigeria and Nigeria in those days. I'm glad to see her getting deep into the political fray and all that. I pray that the Lord will reward her efforts, okay? And she was talking about solutions and people having sold out and things like that, and also bringing our tablet of remembrance. And this is what we're doing in ALG. I think in ALG, I want to try to get us to bail the cat and bring out all the information, all the resource that we have. Hopefully, prayerfully, we have the right kind of people on the table, and then somehow or the other, we can start some kind of movement for change. But as I said before, we need a lot of resource. We need a lot of resource. It's not going to be easy, and it's not going to be cheap trying to reach all these people with the information that we have and encourage thinking in the right direction. So we need to really put our thinking caps on and begin to wonder, where will this help come from? And as I said, the diaspora. And that's why Jumoke has a lot of work to do to energize and to encourage the diaspora to be part of this struggle, and hopefully to eliminate whatever tribal tendencies they potentially have, And we need to sit down as a nation and really agree what we think is best for us. Some people were saying in the parliament the other day that we can no longer go back to regionalism. I don't agree. I think we can have some kind of regionalism of some sort where everybody can develop at their own pace. It's very, very important. What we're having in Nigeria now is that some parts of Nigeria are being slowed down for other parts, and that's totally unfair and totally unnecessary, unless we can have that kind of leadership that is ready to really carry everybody along together so that nobody feels cheated or maligned. I'd like to thank Auntie Nika, Professor Grange. I've known her since I was in King's College. She's auntie to very, very, very close family, and we all moved around together as family. I thank her for her consistency. I thank her for her love for Nigeria. I thank her for being undeterred and the great contributions she's making here. She asked, how did Lee Kuan Yew become a transformative leader? Well, I did a quick research and I Googled Lee Kuan Yew just now, although I knew a bit of it, but I wanted to be sure I was on strong standing. Lee Kuan Yew was born on the 6th of September, 1923. When he was attending Cambridge in the 40s and 50s, his roommate was a gentleman called Remi Fani-Kayode. I learned this from my brother. As a matter of fact, Remi was thought to be even a little bit more brilliant than Lee Kuan Yew, and they studied together, and Lee Kuan Yew was reputed to have borrowed some of his notes. And they both then went back to Nigeria to join the agitation for the end to colonial rule in their various countries. So Lee Kuan Yew was just part of that wave of people colonized by Britain, went to school in Britain, and then went back to their countries to join the move for independence. So he went back to Singapore and joined the move for independence. But the truth of the matter is that a lot of people of that generation were very well educated with the right kind of values. One or two of them didn't quite have it, but most of them had it. Lee Kuan Yew was just simply the Obafemi Awolowo of Western Nigeria to Singapore, who had been given some kind of value, some kind of training, some kind of ethics, some kind of morality, some kind of sense of belonging. Here it says that during the Japanese occupation of Singapore, he witnessed hardship and brutality, which greatly influenced his views on governance and the importance of security. I am one of those that believe that if we had not had the coup of 1966, we would have evolved a much better political class than we have now. Yes, indeed, one or two of them were corrupt here and there, but it doesn't hold a candle to what the kind of corruption we're seeing today. In those days, the prime minister lived next to your house. You walked across to his house. There was no flashy convoy, no flashy this, no flashy that. They all lived on Marina here. We knew where they lived. Those in Western Nigeria lived in Iyagoku and places like that. You could go to Akintola's house and visit his children. You could go to Awolowo's house in Okeado and play with the children and play with the grandchildren. They were normal people who moved around with their people because they had that background of proper upbringing. It is the military that destroyed that completely and now created a culture of sycophants who follow them around for contracts and then hand over the governance of Nigeria to those people who follow them around, while the people of good pedigree and background retreated to professionalism, retreated to institutions, retreated to lecturing, and restricted themselves to those things because their background could not make them military sycophants. This is where we lost it. So Lee Kuan Yew was just one of those who had the right kind of background, the right kind of exposure, went back to Singapore, joined the political party. He was co-founder of the People's Action Party with an aim to end British colonial rule and establish self-government for Singapore. In 1959, Singapore gained self-rule. He became the country's first prime minister. Just almost the same trajectory that Awolowo had, the same trajectory that Fani-Kayode had, who became deputy prime minister, the same trajectory that Zik had, and so on and so forth. Maybe even Tafawa Balewa himself and Sardauna Sokoto. They were people who had some kind of pedigree. And that is part of the generation, Nancy, to which you are one of the last bastions of, who had pedigree, who had education, who had moral standing, who had the fear of God, who were very, 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 almost not corruptible. My mother was one of them. She was the first woman permanent secretary in Nigeria. So we had some kind of stability in Nigeria, some kind of fear of the rule of law, and so on and so forth. And that is what his background was. And look, Singapore was very, very lucky to have somebody like that take over Singapore at that time. Dr. Charles, what can I say? All I can say is thank you very much for your comments, and we will take everything on board. Thank you.
Okay, so we have the last three hands, Dr. Ezekiel and Professor Kome and Honorable Ashiru. So please go ahead, Dr. Ezekiel.
Hey, first of all, I just want to commend. This is probably the most informative session I've been part of. Just to hear the historical evidence Pastor Itua talked about, and I think we need more of this information to get to a lot of people in. Let me put it this way: more of the younger people in the university setting. He talked about even having information to the rural areas, and I think we should have a strategy where we can start educating people. Number two is also the diaspora. I think this message should be taken across the shores of Nigeria, where we can plan a symposium in North America or maybe in England, and also we can use that as a means to raise money, to raise funds. Because I think funding can come from the diaspora, and especially from the Western Hemisphere. So I just want to humbly ask that we push this program beyond Zoom, where we can have maybe a symposium planned maybe sometimes for next year. It could be in the East Coast, or maybe Texas or West Coast of US, or maybe somewhere in England, but a conference that would have a convergence of Nigerians who have the best interests of the country, who are willing to come listen to this message, and also, most importantly, create an avenue where we can start raising funds. Because I believe in the power of education. I have a background in education, but I do think if people in the university setting in Nigeria don't even know the basic history of what Pastor Itua talked about today, I think we have a big problem. So I think the best thing to do is to look for ways to educate people, and that would be that we take it to university. We do a lecture or symposium, in different states across Nigeria. And that is my contribution to this. And also, I just want to commend, this is such a powerful, informative session, and I think we should start. And I don't know where Sister Jumoke is based, but I think it would be good if we get the whole diaspora process moving as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I put a form in the chat, so if you don't mind filling that out, so that I can have your contact information, and then I'll follow up with you. Thank you, Dr. Ezekiel.
Absolutely, thank you.
Professor Okome, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed the presentation, but I want to say that there's actually more knowledge about Nigerian politics in Nigeria, in the universities, than we want to acknowledge. Our universities have been battered, again, because of the way in which we don't prioritize the things that we need to, and we waste money and energy on things that are absolutely useless in terms of the development of our country. So the universities are not guilty. Nobody wants to listen to them. There's a lot that Nigerian scholars have written about our plight, our history, and how we got here, but we don't listen to them. I want to join forces with the people who say we need institutions. Yes, our institutions are broken, but from some of the stuff that I've written in the comments, there are no shortcuts to progress. We cannot magic our way, or even, I love prayer. We need to pray, but prayer alone without working is not going to get us to where we need to be. If these institutions are broken and we don't fix them, we're going to be in this same mess, no matter what the leader is that we produce. I also want to say that, yes, we can learn a lot from Singapore and the Asian tigers. But Singapore in particular is a very tiny city-state. It is not as complex as Nigeria when it comes to the ethnic composition and a whole lot of the mess that Nigeria has found itself in. So we need to, as we're drawing from those lessons, take Nigerian history and a lot of our problems into consideration, because that's how we'll be able to maybe put in place some of the learning. So in terms of what we need to do, I think if we can't, like institutions, managing the election, you know, that is an institution. The political parties are institutions. It's not just like how we think about institutions. Our laws are institutions. And also, you know, some of our values become institutionalized. These are all areas in which we need to work. And it's not easy work because it took us a while to get into this mess. Okay, so I think that we need also our educational system. The way we are still under a very colonial system, I agree with my sister that talked about the need to educate differently, education for liberation, and centering the positive aspects of our culture in order to get people thinking differently. Also, inclusive politics. Nigerian politics is male-dominated. And I know people will bring up examples of women who have done wrong, but you know, we're excluding women, we're excluding the youth, we're excluding the disabled, and we want to move the country forward. So we depend on these usual suspects. Inclusive politics is important. Diaspora voting I also believe in, because the diaspora is actually playing significant part in ensuring that people are fed and they don't die from, you know, preventable things when they're called upon for emergency. And then there's investment from the diaspora. And then it's a waste for us to have brilliant people that are functioning well elsewhere, managing politics in America, in the UK, and everywhere else, and we prevent them from participating in our politics for some reason. So I think majority of us know what to do, but those things are very difficult, even individually, you know. So for me, there's no easy way. And because majority of us Nigerians decide to leave politics in the hands of the kleptocratic bandits that are in power, we're suffering the consequences.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Is that that's your comment? Yes? Okay, go ahead. Honorable Ashiru, please go ahead, sir.
Good evening, everybody, my dear brother pastor. I mean, we discuss from time to time privately. I think I would differ a bit from all the things you said. Only one I'm going to differ a bit from is the issue of raising funds. You know Nigeria where we are. Even if you like, bring all the funds in this world. The people that are going to fight us, they have the money, they have the muscle to fight it. And I'm happy you experienced this recently. I'm not going to talk much about that. My own point is this. Diaspora or no diaspora, all the things you've said here, it's not that we don't have Nigerians that can do them. But the problem is that we still need to go back to regional government. And I can tell you this, if you remember vividly, the Western region borrowed the Central £12 million then. So you can see that, and if I'm giving you another example, out of all the investment companies they have, the regional ones, the only one I see existing is Odua Investment. It's because of the way we manage. So if we have regional government and we make Central unattractive, then things will change. Are we going to change these people that were fighting yesterday about not giving the Speaker of House of Assembly GCON, or the people that we sit and be talking about Brisky or whatever the name the guy was? I mean, is that the problem in Nigeria today? So the problem is that we have really digressed and we've forgotten what we wanted. So the problem is that I will support that we still have that regional government. Then we have a civil service that is factioned after British system and the presidential system of government that is factioned after American system. You can see the mismatch we have in the country. So we have a problem, and the only way we can do it is to ensure that, because even like I always tell people, if they bring Jesus Christ to Nigeria, Nigerians will try to corrupt him. So that is how bad our system is. That's how bad our system is. People that are part of this system that we started this thing with you about 4 years ago, some of them are in government. They are saying something else now. They are not reasoning the way we are reasoning. So the point is that we need to look at how we sit down and we are the people. We need to gather people so that when they are sending out the so-called memorandum of understanding and people are coming out to talk, then that's when we have more population saying, let us have a regional system, whereby those people that are leaking this country, that have not, that are benefiting in the north, when they know that, oh, the southern people, and that's why they don't want it to happen. So that's why they are fighting it tooth and nail, because all the things we said about it, we know the right thing, we know what to do. We are talking Nigeria as well, we are talking about somebody else. We know our problems is finding the solution, but the system is corrupt. We are all corrupted. I mean, the funds you are talking about, Pastor, that diaspora money, by the time we gather the money together, some people will take part of the money. That is where the problem will start. That's why because if you're supposed to send money for something else, they will divert it. So my own solution is that all I need to say is that an average Nigerian should be happy about Nigeria. I should continue to be proud that this country, something will happen. I don't know what will happen, but something will happen with time and things, because this is a country that God loves much. I mean, we said it won't happen again during Abacha. We said it won't happen. I mean, look at it. We are still saying it. I mean, today, Naira is over 1,700 to $1. It's an insult. This is a country that is endowed with a lot of mineral and natural resources. So I think I see Nigeria as a country that is son of a rich man that just tried to spend the money of the father anyhow because he didn't work hard for it. I mean, that's my own submission. But getting money together is an issue. I think it will even split this group. Because once the money is there, people will start fighting to become maybe treasurer, financials, then that's the beginning of the problem. But I pray that Nigeria, things will get better. That's my own prayer. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Over to you, sir. Do you want us to take announcement now, or you will take announcement after this and then closing remarks after the announcement?
No, let me just take this and do my closing remark. And you can do announcement and vote of thanks, okay? So that we don't need to go back and forth. I like what Dr. Ezekiel has said, and I think it's a challenge to us on ALG, and I'd like us to take that challenge up, even though my brother Bimbo said something slightly contrary, but I'll deal with that when I get there. And that is, we should have these conferences with the diaspora and at least expose to them clearly, develop a paper that we can take around, that they can understand the issues and see whether they are ready to come to Macedonia and help us. Have a conference in the East, in the Central, and in the West Coast, and also do something in Europe, so that people can understand that Nigeria needs a change, and Nigeria cannot change unless there are people ready to put together a resource to help that change. If they don't put it together, everything will start and end on the pages of conversation. And we're not even saying that we want to challenge the people in power with their resource. We're just saying that we want to make the resource do some few things to help other people see a way out. So if, for example, we're able to gather enough resource to inform many people, like Peter Obi was able to do one way or the other, without no political structure. He gathered 6 million votes because people were informed. If we have enough money just to inform people, maybe the next time they have an opportunity at voting, they will vote slightly differently. That's what we're talking about. If we have enough money to tell the INEC people, you don't need to take any bribe. If you don't take any bribe, you conduct free and fair elections. We ourselves will give you what you should have taken as bribe when you finish your tenure. Don't worry, we'll have money for you in America, and so on and so forth. Don't bother to take bribe. Just do the right thing, and so on and so forth. You have a little bit of your own resource to do a few things, okay? So Senator Bimbo Ashiru wants to go into politics now. Bimbo, you know what? Silver and gold we don't have, but this is $1 million. Go and fight as best as you can. Instead of him running all over the place begging the people he wants to compete against for contracts before he can run his political process. That can make some bits of change instead of us sitting down and folding our hands. If we can get diaspora to come back and invest in Nigeria, like they're almost doing in the medical field now. Everywhere I go now, I'm seeing diasporans doing medical fields and medical hospitals. First cardiology is diasporan come back. I read just recently a young Nigerian who is now doing cardiovascular operations, the first pinhole operation in the heart in Nigeria, is because the diaspora come back. If we get diasporans to come back and invest in real estate, invest in medical, invest in this, invest in that, this gentleman now is going to save Nigeria a lot of money in foreign exchange that they don't need to go abroad to do. There's a medical procedure I've done twice, okay? I did them in America. Just yesterday now, somebody is telling me, no, you can do that procedure here in First Cardiology. Don't waste money and time flying to America. That alone will save Nigeria about $10,000 to $15,000 because that's what it cost me to go to America to do a simple medical procedure. Okay, I'll just do it there. Maybe they'll charge me 1 or 2 million naira. It's better than paying $15,000 because I'll pay the ticket, I'll pay hotel, I'll pay the medical consultant just to do a simple procedure. That will save us money. So that's what we need to do with the diaspora. And I think they're very, very important, okay? As for going back to regional government, Bimbo, it's going to be difficult because these people are profiting so much from petrodollar that already they are fighting regional government because they feel that once you have regional government, some people will be disadvantaged. Again, if you had money from somewhere, either within or without, you can move bills in the House of Assembly. You can move bills in the National Assembly. You can promote this regional thing that they are fighting. You yourself can promote it and see how you can use some money to move it forward. If you don't do it and you don't have the money, they will kill it because they are not interested in it. But there might be 5, 6, 7, 8 people in that National Assembly who think it's a good idea, but they need support, they need resource, they need encouragement. That will come from the money in the diaspora. And who knows, you may just get that bill moved and we go back to our regionals because that is how Nigeria was negotiated. You know, that is the contract we signed. How can they throw our contract away and say that we should just exist anyhow? You sign a contract with a business partner that you will share profit 50-50. All of a sudden, somebody comes and says the contract is null and void. He's going to take all the profit and that you should just manage yourself. Obviously, that agreement cannot work. So we have to go back to the table, to the old contract, or come to the table and negotiate a new one that will be in everybody's interest. Prof. Okome, I agree with most of what you have said and so on and so forth. What we're going to try and do in ALG is to refine this discussion that we've had, do the research, get all the information, and have papers that we can present to the diaspora, papers that we can present. Even there might be some Nigerians here who have money and resource, but they are waiting for somebody they can support. Papers to the university to educate our children. And hopefully, we will set up our own institution that by God's grace, with discipline, money will not separate us. We will not fight for the money. We will not, if we now find people on this platform who once money comes in, they start fighting for money, it means that we've been talking to the wrong people all the time. They're not the people we should be talking to. There's some people who are above money. I am personally, I think, to a large extent, not so money driven anymore. How many shoes do I want to wear? How many ties? How many clothes? How many cars does a man want to drive? Contentment. All I want is for Nigeria to be a better place. Finish. So that my children and my children's children can have a simple opportunity by common hard work to make something of their lives. They don't need to know governor this, senator that, or senator the other one. I went to King's College. I knew nobody, and I got a good education in this same Nigeria. Why can it not be so for my own son and my grandchildren yet unborn? That's all I'm asking for. And then anybody who is ready to work hard and make as much money as he wants, he's free to do so. But it is hard work, not corruption. Thank you very much, everyone. Let us try. You know, the least we can do is to try. The worst we can do is not to try. And I think we should just try. Who knows? Who knows? You take a step forward into the Red Sea, God will part it. But if you stand by the banks of the Red Sea, it will never part. Who knows? Just one step might be all that God is waiting for. And then he will make the enemies hear the chariots and the soldiers, and they will flee. That's all we need. Somebody must be ready to take a step. And I think on this platform, I'd like to appeal to all of us to come together and take that step. It might be a small step. Let's leave it the rest in the hands of God. But for not to do anything, Nehemiah told Babylonian Persian president, let me just go back to Jerusalem. Let me just start to rebuild that wall. Maybe as I go, I will find favor. And he found favor as he went. Thank you very much. God bless you all.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, for the very passionate presentation. And I believe this would be one of many that we would be having with you, because I think, as I had mentioned, this is the most insightful presentation on Nigeria that I have heard. And also, just point of information to those that have talked about the diaspora and the funding. We have gotten funding from the diaspora. We've used that for FanFan, and we've published the funds that we got from the diaspora. No one is fighting over that. And our books are open, and we'll continue to present that. Also, for those of you in the US, we are registered as a non-profit organization. So that means you get tax benefit. We issue tax receipt to those that donate. And no, someone sent me a text, no, diaspora is not just our ATM. Part of what we're also doing at ALG is providing support to the diasporans for those that want to do business in Nigeria. How can we help? How can we help facilitate some of the transactions or business that you want to do in Nigeria? For example, we're in conversation with the diaspora, and we're going to help them recruit nurses and doctors for the hospital they just built, and we would serve as almost like an oversight, helping get information, doing the background check. So we have quite a bit of resources that we would also be offering to the diaspora. And my appeal to the diasporans is, even though you can't vote just yet, you do have a lot of clout in your host countries. You can influence policies. We talk about this all the time. We can influence policies that could help or that could support Nigeria. We can influence laws that can hold perpetrators accountable. We are not doing enough of that. So those are some of the things that we can do in addition to supporting ALG financially. The funds we are also looking for is our community development funds. We go into communities to educate the community about good governance and their citizens' responsibility. We did one recent, we've done a few, and we've used FanFan, Feed a Neighbor, Feed a Nation, as a tool to go into these communities. We distribute food palliatives now, but information about the need for them to be able to select accountable, responsible, and ethical leaders. So that's part of what we're doing. Our fund is not just for us to sit on it. We are non-profit. We are accountable to IRS, and we are also, I think we've gone through the anti-money laundering scrutiny in Nigeria as well. So as Pastor said, we are very responsible. We don't fight over money at ALG. Our books are very open, and we do publish our accounts every year. So you'll get another one in December. I also want to thank, I don't know if she wants me to mention her name, Mr. President, while you were speaking, one of my sisters from the diaspora pledged $1,000, and she also pledged something monthly that she's going to use to support ALG in all that we are doing. We do need the resources. And again, our books are open. We publish it. And from time to time, on this platform, we will go through some of the things that we're using the funds for, what our account balance is, and all that. And you can hold me responsible. Pastor Lu and I are in charge of the finances, and we do keep very, very good records, receipts of everything that we get in. So that's what that's my point of information. And also, this is I don't want to overstress it, not because he's our principal, but this is information that needs to get into the hands of every Nigerian. We need to work together. So please share this information, share information about this platform. Is the same Zoom link every Thursday. It's just a different speaker. And based on this, I think we'll probably have more of Mr. President come speak more on this, on the other side, for him to give this presentation, because I know there's a lot that he has to share with us. Again, thank you for your time this evening. I did put the link to join ALG in the chat. Please, we're looking for all hands on deck. We're looking to partner with as many like-minded organizations as possible. I know we've been talking about building a coalition. That is still in the works, and we'll probably have that. We've also talked about having those symposium in North America, and now that that's on, we'll probably start working on that soon enough. But we are very glad you could join us this evening. Share the information, share the Zoom link, just because we need to get this information to as many Nigerians as possible. Thank you all for joining us this evening. It was another wonderful couple of hours that we have spent. God bless you, and God bless Nigeria. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah,
Pastor Lu,
thank
I
you,
had seen your
everyone.
hand up earlier. Did you have something? I thought I saw your hand up.
Yes, actually, my comment was taken care of through the president's response to some of the questions. So that's why I lowered my hand. I also wanted you to mention that this Saturday, we'll be having a fan food distribution around the Laje community. Fan is our acronym for Feed a Neighbor, Feed a Nation. Activities that we are going to do this Saturday. So as many as are interested to join us, they can join us at CMS Grammar Primary School at Ilaje, Bariga area. By 12 noon, we'll be there distributing dry food to the people within that community. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And you also use that as an opportunity to educate them about their local government, their own responsibility, their citizens' responsibility. I know that's part. So FanFan is a tool. When we go into these communities, we also use it as an opportunity to educate. So maybe you can speak a little bit about what that education looks like and the kind of information you share before we distribute the food.
Yeah, what we normally do when we get to the community is to educate them on their civic rights and responsibilities within their community and within their local government areas. We encourage them to hold their leaders accountable, to let their leaders know the things that they are going through, what they are experiencing within their community, what their needs are, and what the promises their leaders made to them.
You know,
Why they are campaigning. So that's those are the kind of things we educate them with. We let them know their rights under the law, their rights as citizens of Nigeria, and what they are expected to also do as citizens to ensure that they don't litter, they don't go against the traffic, they respect the law, and a little bit about sanitation within their environment. We mentioned that too. And their right also to participate effectively within the political sphere in their area and their society. So those are the kind of things that we talk to them about. And we also make ourselves available to support them in their, if they need any form of support, as in politically, or they needed anything from the government, we serve as advocates. We can be a liaison officer between them and their government. We can, make cases for their community. Maybe they are experiencing flooding issue or problem about health matters or whatever. We can go and represent them with their government, maybe at the local government level or at the state level, and we'll speak with their representative in the State House of Assembly or Federal House of Assembly, or with the Senate, the senator representing their constituency. So these are the things that we let them know that we are capable of doing and we are willing to do too. So we have a team that is very, very available and willing to support them and go the whole length to ensure that they achieve all the plans and the goals that they have set out for themselves.
Thank you
very much.
We did one in Ikorodu, I believe it was in last month. And this is where the youth advocates, the youth corpers, they are not all youth corpers anymore, but we have a youth arm and they are very engaged in this process. So that's one way of also training them in this leadership in service, because leadership is also about service. So a shout out to all our youths that continue to show up for all these events to support ALG and FanFan as we go out to doing this. So thank you also very much. And also, this is a leadership scoring tool that we developed back in 2023, but we are not going to wait until the next election to start sharing this. We are going to make this available. This is something that should be ingrained in us every day. This is part of who we are, who we should be looking at, the qualities that we should be looking at in a good leader. So we'll publish this and then we'll share this to everyone. Again, thank you all. And we have an upcoming outreach in December coming up. So use clothing. We want to reach out to the elderly in Nigeria. Please mute yourself if you're not speaking. Thank you. We want to reach out to our elderly population, especially during Christmas as we go out. An organization is going to be giving us 200 packages of food that we are also going to be sharing. And so if you have good used clothing, in good condition, please let us know. That would be part of our outreach. Thank you so much for your time again this evening. As you can see, there's a lot we are doing.
Can I just chip in one experience that we have had? Over the years, we've been teaching so much about politics and leadership and accountability and all of that. I remember years that has been spent on this education and awareness process. I want us to kind of think again. Why is it not working? Is it because the people understand that even if you do the right thing, as an individual, the results, you don't get the results. If there's impunity in the land, where the people that are doing the wrong things are not punished, there are no consequences, I think we will continue to educate till kingdom come, and we may not get the results. So we need to really have that think tank that is looking at, outcomes and, cause and effect and stuff like that, and what else we can do to engage the NBA or whatever institution we want to work with to make sure that the people are not stupid. They don't need that much. They understand they understand politics more than you. If you go and talk to the market woman, she will educate you very, very well. So please, let us also look at how we can make sure that the education works. The consequences are there. Every sentient person knows that if you do the wrong thing, you get caught. Next time you won't do it again. Let's begin to look at other aspects rather than just educating the people thinking that they don't understand. They understand very well. Just my little 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for attending this evening. We're glad you could join us. It's going to be another insightful conversation next week as we continue to talk about recommendations for moving Nigeria forward. God bless you. Have a very good evening. Thank you, Mr. President, for your passionate presentation. Very insightful. And we hope it will get into the hands of many, many more Nigerians. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening. God bless you.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you all.
Jumoke.
God
Thank you,
bless
Mr.
you.
President. Bye.
Invite somebody next week.
Thank you, Pastor Ita. Bye, everyone.
Have
Thank
a
you all.
wonderful
Thank you
evening.
very much. God bless you.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Enjoy
you,
the rest
Pastor
of your
Itua.
evening. God bless you.
And my darling Jumoke, thank you so much
Thank
for
you so much.
Thank
doing
you.
all the work behind the scene, putting it all this together. We cannot thank you enough.
Effort. It's a team effort. Definitely. We have a strong team. So thank God for our team. Thank God for Faye, Pastor Lu, Pastor